Welcome to Get Up in Scale. Today we're joined by Bruce Rosard. Rosard is a titan in the tourism and activity space. He has over 40 years of experience, and he likes to say he joined when the internet and travel intersected. He's been a mentor through TechStars for going on 15 years now. He helps young people, and I know he's mentored a lot of us as well. He's dipped his toes in the podcast space as well with the Experience This Travel podcast. I've had the pleasure of listening to a few of those episodes, and we know him mostly for him being a co-founder of Arrival. Arrival is the go-to conference in the travel and experience space. We're there every year, and we hope to see you all there as well.
I gotta work, grind. That's just the way it is. I gotta get up, scale, and grow my biz. I gotta scale, grow, get up, go, scale, grow, get up, go.
Bruce, thanks for coming on today. How are we doing?
Oh, thanks, Brett. Titan, I like that word.
Stole that from Kai.
I might have to use that one for sure. And you said I kind of started at the intersection of internet and travel. I was there at the start of internet and travel, but by then I'd already been in business for a little bit over, like almost 15 years in the ski business. So I started in the ski business right out of college. I ran a ski club at college, and like many of us in travel, turned ski club into let's get into the travel business, because we figured out if you bring 20 people with you, you get to ski for free. And
there you go.
That's kind of how I started. Was I just want to ski for free. So I was kind of a professional ski bum. Unfortunately, never lived in a ski area and was a real ski bum. I just decided to get into the business right away. And 40 years kind of dates me, doesn't it? Is it the 40 years or the lack of hair? Which one dates me more?
Oh, neither. Come on now.
Come
on now. What is a ski club? I don't even know what exactly that is.
Where'd you go to college, Justin?
I'm from Florida. Okay, I see mountains once in a while if I'm lucky, but
so we had a very active group at the University of Florida. It was run by a professor, and he started a ski club there, which basically meant during Christmas break he would get as many kids from the University of Florida to go on a ski trip somewhere, usually in Colorado, and we would get 60 or 80 people. They would come for a week, and as Moguls Mountain Travel, our company, we take care of their airfare, their lodging, their lift tickets, ski rentals, planned parties, blah, blah, blah. And we did that for over 100 schools around the country, basically. Yeah. And
wait, so you did that
ski club
while you were still in school or after?
Well, no, I ran my own ski club. I went to UConn.
Yeah.
Yes, the number one in college basketball today. Depends when you're going to play this podcast.
Yeah, right.
Before March Madness starts, we're number one. And I will have them in all the pools that I participate in, winning the whole thing. They are the defending champion. But enough of that. So I went to the UConn and ran a ski club there, grew it from about 100 members to 1,000 members over 3 years. And no one was coming after my business to say, hey, you're a 1,000-person ski club. Come ski at Killington. Come ski at Steamboat. Come ski anywhere. And I saw an opportunity to go drive around to colleges and meet the ski club presidents, and that's how I created a business.
That's a really unique way to get into the travel world. It's I feel like we all have our kind of unique random stories of how this happened, like how we got here. When did the ski thing end, and when did you take the next step into was Arrival the next step after that, or
no there was a couple things in between. So I ran Moguls for over 20 years, and got to 94, 95 was when we built our first website. 94, it was black and white. This was at the very early stages, and we started getting emails. So before that, all of our business was groups, these college groups primarily. We also decided that during spring break, we realized no one really wanted to go skiing. The college kids all wanted to go south. At the time, a lot of it was South Padre Island. Lauderdale was kind of fading out, but then it started to be Cancun and the Bahamas. So we very quickly started selling. The Bahamas was first, and then Cancun, and then Jamaica, and then Barbados to college ski clubs. Sounds weird, right? But these college ski club presidents knew how to sell stuff, and they said, I'll sell a trip to the Bahamas for you. So they would get 100 people to go to the Bahamas. They would earn 5 free trips. They could go to the Bahamas if they want, or they could convert those free trips into ski trips, which a lot of them did. So they would sell like 100 people to the Bahamas and 20 people to Vail.
Yeah.
And they were doing that. So we started doing that in the mid 80s. And then in the mid 90s, when we built our first website, we started getting forms, right? We weren't online, right? It was a form. Family of 4, we want to go to Vail. Family of 5, we want to go to Aspen. 6 guys, we want to go to Colorado, anywhere. And as soon as our website started, we started getting these email forms. So we became a quote unquote .com, basically.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was 94, 95. And then by 99, we're getting close to the bubble bursting. And we decided it was time to sell the company. And we did. And we had a few different options of who to sell it to. And let's just make a long story short, we did not pick the right option to sell it.
I was going to say, is that how you got so rich, Bruce?
Who said I was so rich? I'm still freaking working, Kai.
You work for fun, though, right? It's just like
Yeah, well, I do have fun working. I love to work.
Yeah.
But no, we did okay, but we didn't do as well as we thought we would.
Yeah.
Definitely, you could look at the road that we could have traveled, and
Yeah.
one of the companies that wanted to buy us ended up turning into Expedia, so that would have been a more profitable venture. But it did allow us to scale. Part of the topic of this, they invested a few $1 million in us, and we scaled. Ended up with 20,000 square feet of office space, over 100 employees, and no longer profitable. It's one thing about scaling that you have to be really careful about, right? Is revenue up, net income can go down very quickly. We were always a pretty small growth company, but always profitable until they invested a couple $1 million in us because they said, grow, grow, grow. It's 1999. We just want to grow.
Yeah.
Don't worry about profit. And it wasn't my company anymore, so I didn't have to worry about profit. I had someone to pay for it. A year later, they had a new venture capital company come in and said, why are you in the travel business? Get out of the travel business. So we could go a long story there. We won't do that.
Yeah.
I ended up having to buy it back with another partner who went bankrupt.
Oh, wow.
And I had to buy it back from the bankruptcy court. And then I had to struggle for a few years until we sold it again in 2004. And then I finally was able to walk away in 2005, basically. And that's a very short story of how I got my MBA of Hard Knocks.
Yeah. It feels like we could do a whole podcast on that story.
We could, and I might have done more detail on a different podcast, I think.
Yeah.
But then I went to work. I called the guy, my main mentor in the world, other than my father, a guy named Philip Wolf, who was the founder of Focusrite, really well-known company in travel tech and travel innovation. Yep. And he built Focusrite on that intersection, and that's why I use it, of where internet and travel intersect. He built it right around starting in 94, 95 when Expedia and Travelocity and others were getting going. And I said, Philip, you know everyone in online travel. I want to get out of ski. It's too small, and get into travel. And he's like, well, if sales is in your blood, come meet me and let's talk. And sales is in my blood. And I went and talked to him, and I went to work for Focusrite for about 6 or 7 years. And they run still the best conference in the travel industry for really innovation for everything and travel tech and travel trends. Very high level executive conference. Ticket is $3,000 to $4,000. It's where I met Douglas, my partner for Arrival, and
he was a colleague at Focusrite.
He was head of research, and I was head of sales and marketing, which is still kind of how we partner, right?
Yeah, sounds like a good
same
match.
roles. Yeah,
we still have very similar roles, which is why we have a great partnership. Because
so you guys were probably talking shop, and eventually, at some point, you guys were like, "Well, we could do this ourselves."
Well, in
for the broader industry,
2010, not the broader industry, right? Because now all we care about is tour. At the time it was called tours and activities.
Yeah.
2010, and we and primarily Douglas saw that there's no research on this sector. No one knew anything about it. And we had a small little company in Australia that came to Focusrite and said, can you tell us how big tours and activities is? And that company was called Viator. And we needed to do research to figure that out. So we did a research project just to market size. How big is tours and activities in the United States? It was $38 billion. And this is like 2010. And Viator was one of the clients of that study, as was Resgo. If you guys know Resgo.
Yeah,
sounds familiar.
One of the OGs of ResTech. And a couple others I don't remember, but we did that as the market sizing. And the industry woke up like, holy shit, there's $38 billion US only for this little sector called tours and activities we've never even heard of. Next thing we know, TripAdvisor buys Viator. That's why they wanted this data, because they wanted to sell. And, we're kind of off to the races with investment in the business, et cetera. And the next time it got market sized, it was global. It was a few years later. It was 180 billion. There's a research project that says that. Fast forward, I left the company. Douglas was still there. He did some more research on it. And then at one point, the idea came, there's no conference for tours, for experiences. There's no community for it. Maybe there's an opportunity there. I was outside. I was just consulting at the time. I didn't have any full-time gig. Douglas was at Focusrite. We had a third partner at the time who was doing a startup. And the idea was, let's try to run a conference. Neither of you guys came, I don't think, to year one. Did you? 2017?
I want to say my first year was 2018 or 2019 in Orlando. I don't
2019 would have been Orlando.
Yep. I went year 2 in 2018 in Vegas. And then, Brett, you went year...
Right?
Yeah, the Hard Rock.
Which was awesome.
That was a great event. I had a great time.
Yeah.
The first year, we were like, is everyone going to show up? We had no idea.
Well, I'm curious. Yeah, I'm really curious to hear about, like, all right, so you put on this new conference, and, like, what happens? Are you worried, like, no one's going to show up? Like, I'd imagine you have to put down a lot of deposits and, like, invest a lot of capital to make it happen, so it's probably pretty stressful.
Well, 2017, so I'm a consultant at the time. I have a few clients, so I could afford to do whatever I wanted to do and didn't have to worry about it. Douglas and Alex both had full-time jobs, so our overhead risk was pretty low. The question is, how are we going to get anyone there? Yeah. And we need speakers, and we need sponsors, and we need attendees. And it was a little bit of the cart before the horse. Who do you get first, right? We went after sponsors first because we need some cash. And we figured if we could get some of the name brands of the sponsors, the attendees would follow and the speakers would follow. So I live in Boulder, Colorado. There was a company that was kind of starting up called Fair Harbor, based out of Denver. So the first thing I did was I drove a half hour down to Fair Harbor, met with Lawrence, told him what we were thinking. He's like, how much? And that was it, right? So I had one client that we called a launch partner, and I ended up with them and Checkfront and Tickets, TIQETS, as our 3 launch partners. So we basically funded the business based on those 3 partners.
Wow. Nice.
Built a website for a couple $1,000s, got a ticketing system that was super cheap, a couple of bucks the ticket, and we're in business right away. And we then went and got other partners. And I'm like, look, even if you don't want to be a sponsor, even if we're not going to have you as a speaker, are you at least going to attend?
Right.
And we got people to say they would attend Peak and TUI Musement, at the time just Musement, and Resgo, and some of the name brands. And we were able, when we launched, to have like 20 name brands on the website that said they would at least be there.
Yeah.
And the registrations just started coming in. What we did was we got our partners, Viator, especially Viator, Fair Harbor, Peak, to send out information about this new event called Arrival.
To their platform.
To their databases, which we still do, but it doesn't work anymore. It really worked like that, right? So that's really probably how you all heard about it, was from, from a booking partner like Zola or whoever you might work with.
A Facebook ad.
You heard it on Facebook ad. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
cool.
I remember seeing it. I remember seeing like Arrival, and I'm like, a conference for tours. Like, that sounds
Right.
fun. And I saw the price, and we didn't do things like that at the time. And I remember calling my business partner and said, "Man, this is gonna be like $1,000 to like, should I even go?" And he was like, "Oh man, that's a lot of money." So we had this like real painful deliberation, and I opted to go. But yeah, you guys got me with a targeted ad.
And you were just one location at the time?
Oh, we had a handful.
Yeah.
We were a small company, a few cities. Yeah.
We made sure year one, we wanted that cost to be $1,000 for the ticket, 3 nights in the hotel. We picked a really inexpensive hotel, the Link, right on the Strip in Vegas, and your airfare to Vegas. And we were able to make it under $1,000 for almost everybody.
Yeah.
And also the thing about the Link, I think we had to put up $5,000 as a deposit.
Nice.
Not bad.
So we were able, to your question, Kai, to get started really cheaply.
You kind of
We didn't have
bootstrapped
to-
it from
we've
day
never
one. That's
borrowed
great.
Any money. This is a totally bootstrapped company. We've never borrowed any money. We're not an investable company, right? We're not tech or anything, and we haven't had to.
Yeah.
Even during, we did get an SBA loan during COVID,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I don't know if you guys did, but we got a
Didn't
loan,
we all?
3% loan for 30 years. Like, that's free money, basically.
Yeah, we weren't going to turn that down.
No.
How many people ended up going that first year, or even like year 1 to year 2? Like,
No, year one
like,
we ended up with like 550. We thought
Nice.
300 was our target.
Nice.
And
That's awesome.
at the time, my wife, who was my COO at Moguls, who wasn't working, like a month and a half before, she's like, "How are you tracking all this shit?"
yeah,
Well, I have spreadsheets, and
Oh,
I
no,
have some
we all
things
do.
that are in my head that I need to get into spreadsheets. I had one part-time admin. That was it. So she
Yeah.
volunteered and came in and create systems. That's what she's great at, and really made sure of the operations. I hired someone from the Mountain Travel Symposium, a project I worked on, who was an event planner, to come in and work on what are called BEOs, which I think, Justin, you might know what that is now because of the event you did with us last year. Maybe you got, Heather said you need a BEO, your beverage and entertainment order or whatever.
Yeah.
BEOs,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
really
yeah.
important. Anyway, so she really made, put the operations in place and made it happen.
That's awesome. And my
And by year 2, we had 1,200 people.
Oh no, I was going to say, my understanding, you scaled all the way from that to, you just had your conference in Berlin. How many people went to that one?
Well, what we did, so 2018 was 1,200 in Vegas, and then we
Yeah.
realized, let's go global before someone else does this, because we're onto something. This thing called tours and activities. We added the word attractions because we want to make sure we're counting attractions. Tours, activity, attractions is kind of long, so now we call it in-destination experiences. I want to call it destination experiences, but we won't go there. But we knew we wanted to go global. We could. And because we were independent, we could do whatever we wanted. Like if we were owned by another company, they would be, no, you can't go global yet. So we did Berlin. We tied it to ITB Berlin, which is the biggest travel B2B event in the world. We ran it right before then as a kind of a safeguard. We knew people would be in Berlin anyway. So we did that in 2019. And we got, I think, about 600 people to come to our first Berlin event. And in the meanwhile, someone who worked for Viator called us and said, "You need to come and do an event in Australia." And he was based in Sydney. We're like, I don't think we want to do Australia. But we finally got to, how about Asia? And Viator at the time then rebranded. They were called TripAdvisor Experiences. And they decided to host a user event at Bangkok the day after our event in Bangkok. So we knew then we had the full support of TripAdvisor recruiting as many people as they could in Asia.
Yeah.
And we said, all right, let's go to Bangkok, way before we would have thought about doing Asia. It was just crazy to do it. But we got 550 people to come to Bangkok that year, also 2019. And then Orlando went down to about 1,000, so we had less than Vegas. But I always blamed it on the fact that we had 3 events. So overall, we had over 2,000 people.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we did grow quite a bit in year 3 over year 2.
So sorry, Kai. That first year you had only you, Douglas, and one other person, or
Well, and
how many?
Alex was helping with the event. And then we had a part-time admin, so she at the event helped a lot. And then Lynn volunteered starting a couple months before the event, and then a part-time meeting planner that we hired just for the event. Yeah,
it's a big event for only 4 or 5 of you. I can imagine the first couple were a tremendous amount of work for all of you guys. Probably
it still is.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, now
probably
it's so
just
easy.
wearing so many hats though those first few events and still. But how many people do you guys have on the team now with the events you're putting on?
We have 14 right now, and I think one of those is a contractor. She's been with us for so long, we include her as part of the team.
Yeah.
But otherwise, they're all W-2. Well, they would be W-2 if they lived in the U.S. The ones in Canada, we have 3 in Canada. So
Yeah.
But I think they are W-2 through us or whatever. It doesn't matter. They're full time.
Yeah.
And we have a couple of positions that we want to
They're
hire.
W2A,
Is that what it is?
EH.
I don't know.
Hey.
And we want to grow, get to like 17 people this year, grow slowly, but we're doing a couple things that are going to require more people for sure.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest challenges of going, from where you were when you started to where you are today? And we can leave out COVID for now, but just in terms of the structure of your business and kind of the business model, like has there been any really big hurdles for you guys to overcome? Or has it been pretty gradual process?
I mean, the biggest hurdle is events don't scale that well, right? I mean, This whole podcast is about scale, right? And events are really hard to scale. The way we're structured, as you guys know, is if Douglas isn't at an event, it's hard to have an event because he's the guy that does the keynotes and the hard-hitting interviews. That's just not my role. I can do interviews. I'm not going to get up and do a keynote. It's just not what I do. And it's one reason we hired Stephen Joyce to kind of help get the backfill Douglas's role.
Right.
But we get, so we're starting a new event in Europe that there's rumors about that we started, the rumors, but we haven't told anyone about officially yet. Although I think we're going to start rolling it out officially pretty soon. So when is this going to air, do you think?
3 weeks from now. 3
So
or 4
I can
weeks.
tell about it now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we're doing
Stealth
an event
mode.
in Edinburgh, in Scotland, in November of this year. And so the reason we're doing that is we looked at like 40 different cities. We want to move from Berlin. Let's go somewhere different. We looked at lots of different cities. Came down to Valencia in Spain or Edinburgh. 2 great options. And our meeting planner, Heather and Lynn, did the final, let's go see it. They went to Valencia, they went to Edinburgh, came back, and they're like, can't decide. They're both awesome.
Oh.
Let's do both. So
There you go.
we decided to try to do both, but dates are hard, and the only way to really do it, we're squeezing in Edinburgh at the end of November this year, which would be harder in the U.S. because it's only a week from Thanksgiving. Obviously, in the UK, they don't care much about Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And this is going to be an event focused not exclusively, but primarily on UK and Ireland. And that's how we're differentiating it. The speakers will be from there. The content is for what they care about more, what's going on in UK and Ireland. All of our marketing and sales effort will be focused around UK and Ireland. We just hired someone who's based out of London to sell for that region and really meet all the DMOs, etc. So that's one way we're scaling it, although we're not doing an event in Bangkok this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think a lot of those APAC leaders are going to go to this one?
No, I think we're gonna miss out on a lot of
Okay.
APAC this year because we're not going to them. And we lost money in Bangkok last year because we came back a year too early. They weren't ready. They were still, China was still shut down. A lot of Asia was kind of just getting started again. So, and a lot of the operators are small there. It's much smaller companies that work through DMCs, which we don't have in the US, right? Like you guys, neither of you probably work with a DMC, I assume, to sell your stuff. Whereas a lot of the small companies in Asia, they don't even know how to take credit cards. They don't have insurance. So the only way you can go on a cool food tour with someone in this area of Vietnam is to buy it through a DMC who you take your credit card and get their insurance, but you're going to go on a tour with, Joe's food tours. And it's like,
right.
Right.
So, so the scalability of the conference business is like a function of how many events you can basically put on in a year. And obviously there's a limit to that, right? Or the amount of people that can show up to any one individual event, right?
Well, that's the other main thing, Kai. Yeah, is our kind of conference is never going to go up to a 10,000 person convention, right? We're a conference that's focused on content, and we have the biz dev and what we call our networking lounge, what you guys are familiar with, and we like that feel versus a trade show, where at a trade show the people come for free and the exhibitors pay all the money.
Right.
And those can scale big.
Yeah, I mean, those exist, like IAPA and et cetera.
Right. IAPA gets like 20, 30,000 people, right? IPW will get 5,000 people. WTM gets 30,000 people. ITV gets 70,000 people. So an event can scale. You can build one big event.
Right.
That's just not our model.
So are you trying to get it from, 1,000 to 2,000 people? Like, where do you guys kind of see that ceiling for keeping it an intimate event and not something that has the 10, 20,000 people where it's hard to make, personal connections with a lot of people like you can at Arrival?
Yeah, that is a great question, Justin, because you say that and I'm like, well, 2,000 would be a great goal, but 2,000 would take away a lot of the intimacy of Arrival, right?
I agree.
Were either of you guys at San Diego when we did it in 2022?
Yeah, we were both there.
I spoke, Bruce.
I did too, but it's fine.
Yeah, no big deal. I was a keynote, but whatever.
Oh yeah, I had a session with Andrew actually.
Yeah. I really made an impression with my speech,
every session.
Bruce.
Okay, I
these
can't
two
remember
guys.
both of my dogs.
I'm usually with the AV team making sure that your slides are coming up. Right? So,
I would just think with these two particular speakers, you should have remembered.
I should have done my homework. Really,
It was a speech for the ages.
I should have done that. Like, go back and see every time that
We weren't
Kai and
memorable.
Justin spoke.
All three of us were there, Bruce, and shook your hand.
And you'll remember that there was only like 500 people there, right? So it was a small event, and you probably loved it, except you had to wear a face mask indoors. And thankfully, we were at a venue. There was a lot of outdoors. It was awesome. But my point is that having a small event was great. A lot of people said that was one of their best events. We did a small event in Berlin right after that, because that was February. In June, we had a small event.
I remember hearing about that.
300 people. And those people, those size events are great.
Yeah.
We just can't make money at a 300-person event, right? I mean, we would have to really change our model to try to make money at 300 people or 500 people. 1,000 people is where we start to at least make a decent amount of money. Do we scale up to 2,000? Well, we'd have to change our model quite a bit, for one thing. And do we lose what we're trying to create at Arrival? So that's a question that I would ask you guys. What do you think?
Well, I would say, what's your goal, Bruce? You've mentioned a few times this is not investable business, right? You wanted to keep the character you have, that there's some limits on scale. But, what are you and Douglas trying to get from this? Is this mission driven, or do you need to scale the business more, Yeah.
Well, let me clarify on it's not investable, meaning a VC is not going to come in.
Right.
Give us $1 million that wants a 10x or more return. That's not going to happen, right? Is it a business that's profitable? Yes, we're profitable. Is it a business that can grow? Yes, we can grow. Now, when we talk scale, that's a different thing.
Right.
When the kind of scaling you guys are doing, where you went from one shop to now both of you have over 20, probably.
I got over 40, Bruce.
40, right?
At 29, we're close.
Yeah. So
Justin's going to pass me up. I know.
Scaling with the franchise model, right, and really growing it that way. Yeah. We've actually literally talked about franchise. Like, you want to run a conference in Florida? We've talked to the awkward water sports guys. Like, you want to take the water sports forum and can we do something together?
Yeah. That actually is interesting.
It is interesting, right? Because they don't want to run a conference, really, right? they like having a conference. They don't like the act of running a conference, which
They
is
like
why
the community, not building the conference. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And why what happened last year worked really, really well, where they got to do what they love to do, and we did the infrastructure for them. Could we do the same in other parts of the country or the world? We could, but it would be challenging. For us, scaling really is what else we can do outside of conferences. So with our membership program, for example, really providing more value into that. Justin knows a lot about that. But what can we do to really make that more valuable so you have to do it? Your franchisees you would tell them you got to be a member of Arrival because of X, Y, and Z. I don't think we're there with that at this point, but if we could get there, that becomes MRR, which is how you scale a business, right? With your monthly recurring revenue.
Sure.
So the membership program is all about that and trying to really get the value right for that. Different data projects. We have access to a lot of data, but we want to connect more data together to be the data source for the industry.
Yes.
And be able to figure out how do we monetize that. And we talk about it a lot, but part of our problem is the urgency of the next conference. Like, conferences are urgent. Like, we have an event now coming up. San Diego doesn't seem like it's, it seems like it's far away. It's not. Followed by Edinburgh and then Valencia. There's a lot of urgency for that. So it's hard to create new products. During COVID is when we created the membership product, but it's sort of half-baked. We have a learning program we've sold to national tourism offices, Visit Scotland and South Ireland, and that can scale for sure. I just need help to sell it. I am the sales team at Arrival right now, so I'm hiring sales. Yeah.
I was just going to say, do you find that you guys are spending more time and effort on trying to reach new attendees or trying to get previous attendees to come back?
We probably spend more time and effort to reach new attendees, right? Because once you've been to Arrival, our repeat is very high. Now, sometimes that's why we go east-west, because some people like to if they're in Florida, they're going to come when we're on the East Coast. Same thing with Hawaii or California, they'll come when we're on the West Coast.
Wait,
so
Hawaii?
We do 2 U.S. events a year, maybe. What was that?
You going to do Hawaii? Because I'll...
No. People from Hawaii
in Hawaii
come to the event when it's in California, like this year, or in Vegas. So we do both. Maybe that could make a lot of sense.
Do you think having one in between the two would get everyone there, or is that kind of what Vegas's goal was? No,
Vegas is like our Western event.
Yeah.
And no, we really don't want to go back to Vegas or Orlando again for a while. Yeah. In the middle is hard. Like, Chicago is a really hard place to run a conference. It's a union town. It's really expensive. So.
What about Oklahoma City?
Everyone's like, why didn't you go here? Why didn't you go here? Why didn't you go here?
I know, right?
So
Kansas City, Austin, there's so many.
Right.
I'm sure there's a reason not to for all of them.
There is a reason for everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Oklahoma City is going to have the tallest skyscraper in the country soon. That'd be a place.
Oh, really? Well, there you go. So maybe Oklahoma
they're
City.
supposed to, yeah.
Yeah.
You can get the top floor for everybody. That's where Kai's hotel room will be.
So another way we want to grow is by creating different things. So, for example, in San Diego, we're going to have what we're calling the executive experience, and limited to 100 people, executive only, right? So that could be guys like you who are CEOs of your companies. It's some bigger companies, at Expedia, we're not going to get the CEO, right? But we might get the top person in tours and activities from Expedia to come.
They'll be like leather seats.
Yeah, maybe leather seats, but more importantly, different ways of creating content that is much more about, I know you're kidding, is more about providing connection with people who run businesses, right? Or run divisions of businesses. So you can just talk to people at your own level and facilitate great conversation.
Kind of segmenting the conference, I think makes a lot of sense so that the right people get connected during the show. The show. So that's great.
That would be another thing. What else can we do at our events to grow the revenue, basically? Yeah.
You mentioned something interesting, which is like your business is cyclical, right? and you have all this extremely time sensitive stuff that you have to get done, I'm sure, all the time to make sure each event gets pulled off, right? And there's the struggle there with you guys working on any other project. That's always going to take the priority over, these other ongoing projects like data, like the membership model. To me, that seems like it's got to be one of the fundamental challenges, is juggling ongoing projects with the cyclical nature of constantly planning new events.
It really is. And again, it comes down to, we're a small company. And so when we need to do research, Douglas and his team do that research. And then they're also focused on what they have to do for the events, getting speakers and getting the content together. So the other non-urgent stuff gets pushed aside, right? You live in those 4 quadrants, and the quadrant of important, not urgent, doesn't get enough attention. And that's what we need to do to really grow. Now we're doing enough right now, but not to get to that point where we really want to get to. So what are our goals? Our goals are to grow to a point and have a great exit, right? I mean, that's what any entrepreneur wants. So of course that's what we want.
Yeah. Have you guys had a most important hire that you think about along the way that has really made the most impact in your business beyond maybe, the first 3 people?
I think very clearly that would be Heather Torrey, who is our event manager. She scopes out where we would want to go, and we always have multiple cities, multiple hotels in each city. Then, I get involved in the negotiation and finalizing the contract, and then she takes over from there. And so everything you see in terms of, the food, beverage, and, what the parties look like, and making sure all the pieces are in place. She is so detail oriented. I mean, she did work with you on, you had a tiny little thing, right? You had a meeting room that you wanted all day, and how much time did she spend?
She's on top of it.
You got exactly what you needed. And imagine that for every event.
Times 100. Yeah.
Wow.
And she does it with a smile, and she works her ass off. And during the event, her days start at 6, and they usually can end at midnight.
Wow.
I'll nominate Heather as that person.
Do you have any tips for hiring and firing? It's something that I've gone through recently, and I always just find it interesting, what people's outlooks are on expanding their own team, and holding on to a person maybe too long, or letting them go maybe too quickly. Do you have any big tips you've kind of learned in that process of building a team?
Yeah. And at Moguls is when we really built more of a team. It's when we got the 100
even
people
from
there,
then, yeah.
and hired a lot of people, a lot of young people. 'Cause a lot of times we were the first job out of college for people. Either they went and were ski bum for a year, and then we were their first real job, or they came to us right out of college. So we had a lot more of that. But, the phrase that we all use, it's really hard to focus on, is hire slow, fire fast, right? And I am in the middle of hiring someone in sales, and I'm hiring really slow. What I've been able to do with a couple people who don't have full-time jobs right now is give them a project and pay them for the project, but give them a project, sell this, show me what you like as a salesperson. Here's how I'll compensate you. So it's not a volunteer project or an internship. It's a real sales job. And get to know what they can do, and they get to know what our job is like. So I've been able to do that for this current hire, but there's people are working full time. You can't really do that. But hiring slow, taking your time to get to the right person, and then firing fast. There's definitely some people we've had that I wanted to fire faster, but they weren't under my domain, right? They didn't work for me. So all I could say was fire them, and their manager waited too long, but eventually they got fired. I can tell you that, because usually when you know that someone doesn't fit, they never work out. I've learned that over years and years.
So true.
There's never someone that I said this person's just not working out. Let's give them a chance. Let's give them some more training. Let's see what happens. Never.
Yeah, I find that interesting, because one thing I've learned in just listening to podcasts and different people talk about it is I listen to Gary Vee a lot, and one of the big things that he always says is hire fast, fire faster, and promote the fastest. And so that's what I've tried to kind of adopt in the business. So I'm curious what your outlook is on that statement compared to hiring slow.
The difference, I think, is if I hired fast, when I do a first interview, I like a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Although then I always make sure they also interview with Lynn and Douglas. So that'll help me eliminate some people. But I definitely like a lot of people early, and I'm not critical enough. So if I just hired fast, I think I would hire some wrong people if I did it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
The tendency for everyone is just to get the role filled, right? That's what everyone wants. And you want to think the best in person. Yeah, I need someone now.
I need someone today. Yeah. So
the same thing with firing. It's like, what are we going to do if we fire this person? We're not going to have this. They're going to take all the, it's always much worse in your mind than it actually is after you fire someone. You think it's going to be the end of the world. And then 2 weeks later, you're like, this is fine.
Oh.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Not always.
I'm just thinking of some recent ones. And
yeah.
I probably shouldn't because they might be watching.
What's your experience been like so far in the podcasting space? Why did you get into that, and how has that kind of helped you guys maybe reach new people, or what has that done for you guys?
Christian Watts, who I do the podcast Experience This with Christian Watts of Magpie Travel, and Lori Timoney, who's at Go City, and it just is we do it really more for fun. Christian has always wanted to do something, and we thought, for a while he was really into Clubhouse. Remember Clubhouse, that thing?
Yeah.
And he was really active with it, and he just likes to get his word out. He's really prolific on LinkedIn, and he finally convinced me, come on, let's just do this. And I was interested in it, and I wanted it to be separate from Arrival, because once it was Arrival, then I have to get Douglas and Lynn on board and marketing involved, and I just wanted it to be more organic. But by being that organic, we don't have a producer. I don't know if you guys have a producer. We don't have a distribution strategy or plan. It's like we put it out on LinkedIn and people will see it. I mean, we don't even have it listed properly on Spotify, so it's too organic. So we need to invest a little bit in it. But we've had a lot of fun with it. We have a pretty, people tell us all the time, they listen to it. We've broken some news. We broke the story a couple weeks ago that actually the CEO of Resd doesn't work there anymore. And that Resd, Checkfront, Reggiando company that's come together, they have a new CEO that no one knew about.
Trifecta.
By the way, the guy is coming from Fair Harbor. And that was really interesting. And by the way, the investment company that merged those three companies, Lawrence Hester from Fair Harbor, is one of the partners. And that news first came out through our podcast. And we don't want to be a news breaking podcast. That's not the idea. But we want to provide information that's relevant for, a different audience than some of the other podcasts. So an audience of sophisticated people that have been in our business for a longer time, not the beginners that are still trying to figure everything out. And we have fun with it. We like to have good guests like you guys do. And we just are there to have fun with it.
That's cool.
Why are you guys doing this?
Oh man, I think most of the reason is Kai and I have talked randomly, actually mostly at Arrival events, but we experience so many of the same things on the day, on our daily basis, just in our own parts of the world, and for us to learn from each other is a big part of it, but also use the network that we've built across the years in going to events and meeting people online digitally, and being able to just connect a lot of those dots together and hopefully help build our own brands, but also shine light on people that we really enjoy in the industry and in different industries too. So that's why I'm here. Kai may have a different answer, but yeah.
Yeah, no, fundamentally it's the same, right? We want to learn, and so we're doing it in a public forum. And, Justin and I always have interesting conversations. And so it constantly came up as, we should have these conversations on a podcast and interview other interesting people and learn from them. And, so we're really creating it as a resource. And something kind of unique is that, our goal for this podcast is really broader than the tour and activity industry. Really, we're looking at talking and learning about anyone who's scaling a business, whether it's a conference business or, software or services. And so we're trying to broaden the scope to learn from people outside of the direct industry we're in as well.
And I think that's super important, right? Like everyone that's in our business can absolutely learn from people outside our business, but we live in our own circle too much.
And Brett made us do this. That's the other reason we're here.
Yeah.
Brett brought it up all the time. Kai and Justin, you guys need to do a podcast together. And finally, we were like, let's go.
We did it.
Yeah. And, part of it was just for content. I mean, I was on enough potential franchisee interviews before we bring a franchisee on. I asked them, so like, what made you decide to pull the trigger on this and want to move forward? Most of them were just like, the minute I started talking to Kai, I realized he was an expert in his craft and that this was going to work. And I said, Kai doesn't have to get on the phone with everyone to, showcase his expertise. And Kai is just as curious, like he said, as anyone. So, it worked. It worked out.
Building brand, right? And personal brand. And that's a big reason I did it as well. Because I'm, everyone knows Douglas, and I want to make sure my personal brand is built out there.
Hell yeah.
And that was part of it, because we're very different, obviously, right?
We want Bruce out there too.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to make a shirt that's like Bruce greater than Douglas and wear it to the next arrival, just for you.
I want to see you get up on stage, Bruce.
There we go.
Yeah.
He's usually in the crowd, asking the hard-hitting questions from the crowd's perspective.
Well, he's like the beat reporter in the audience.
Sure.
And Bruce, knowing that a lot of our listeners, are interested in scaling their business, and you being in these conferences like in Berlin and when you were in Bangkok, what kind of stuff, I'm curious, what kind of stuff are they talking about in Asia and Europe that you think may not even be on a lot of our listeners' radar? Like, what are the topics over there and how does it differ?
Well, just coming from Berlin,
Okay.
it seems like there's a lot more people there talking about opening new cities.
Okay.
And not like you guys are, right? Justin and Kai, by franchising, but taking their own business. And maybe it's something about Europe, right? Where I'm in Rome. Well, what would it take for me to be in Milan? So a lot of it is by country, and there's actually one guy who's Towns of Italy, and he's got funding, federal funding to help him too.
Wow.
I think he's in 8 cities now in Italy, and definitely a lot of talk there about that kind of thing. Fat Tire Bikes is another one. I think they're now in 10 cities or so. I mean, even Walks, who you know, right? But Walks is really mostly Europe. And Devour, they're coming now to the U.S., but originally they were built out of Europe, and they're not franchised.
In Europe, the corporate expansion model definitely seems more. It's like regional corporate expansion seems to be like the playbook, right?
Yeah,
for tours there.
And there's a lot. It definitely seems a lot more interest there. If you want to talk about like how they think about scale.
Do you find that the tourism industry is a little behind when it comes to tech and the tools that we have today to make our businesses better? Even like dynamic pricing, as a pricing analyst for the Golf Channel, I was using dynamic pricing for golf courses 10 years ago.
Exactly.
Why the hell do we not have an actual dynamic pricing in Fair Harbor? Blows my mind.
Oh, they'll tell you.
There's like a slow version of it, right? It's very clunky.
Like 10 years. It's like 10 years behind.
It's
everything
not dynamic pricing. It's not based on demand. It's just, it kind of is, but like it doesn't really take into true demand into consideration.
Well, so you brought up a couple things there. So let's forget about other industries and travel, because I don't know enough about other industries, but let's talk about our industry of experiences in travel. And we think we're 10 years behind hotel, for example, right? And dynamic pricing is like a current example that we believe is probably one of the top things that everyone wants to talk about right now, especially the bigger companies, right?
Yeah.
Most of the smaller guys, they don't even understand the difference between dynamic pricing and variable pricing.
Yeah.
Right.
We did have an experience this session a long time ago that we defined the difference of variable and dynamic pricing. You were doing it, Justin, in your job 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
The airlines have been doing it forever. It's why, you're never getting the same airfare next to the guy.
Yeah, exactly.
With the seat.
Sporting events, any event, big events are doing it.
Well, now Ticketmaster started recently, right, with dynamic pricing. And, that's part of why Springsteen tickets were $1,000.
Yeah, the lack of dynamic pricing for that is what creates scalpers in the first place, because it's not demand based, right?
Right. So now they do it dynamically, but they keep the tickets themselves. So Ticketmaster will work with Ticket Hub or whoever.
I could go on a long rant about Ticketmaster.
There are companies starting to really do dynamic pricing in our business, but they're far and few between. The hard part is the connectivity between Get Up and Go Kayaking and your ResTech, whoever that might be,
exactly.
Right? And then the connection, where you can do dynamic pricing on your own website, maybe, if your ResTech can do it. But then getting that dynamic pricing into the OTA is the hard part.
Yeah.
There are some
Everything
people
is
that
segmented with distribution. That makes it really hard to be effective with it. Yeah.
And then I heard yesterday, it's the follow-on. So let's say that you work with someone who is really good at dynamic pricing, as far as connectivity of it, which is Ventrada. And Ventrada can pass that on to Viator. And then, so Viator can show the dynamic price. They can basically, I forget the right word for it, but they can absorb the dynamic pricing.
Yeah.
Then Viator sells your kayak tours to 1,000 other companies. Those people can't ingest. That was where I'm looking for. Ingest that dynamic pricing. So it stops there. So it's complicated.
Clunky, yeah.
Well, and it's because everything's so fragmented. And
Yeah.
the way you price a kayak tour is so different than the way Brett might price his kayak tours.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the answer, right? Is the ResTech has to try to be all things to all clients, right? And in the process, it's going to be the tool is going to be pretty broad because of that. Because the tour and experienced users are all using it for very different things.
Yeah,
I'd imagine.
Which is the nature of a SaaS platform that tries to be everything for everyone, right?
Yeah.
But the other side is also the operational side. So there's not a lot of companies in our business that are focused on the operations. They're focused on the ResTech and the ticketing, right?
Right.
I actually met someone at Berlin, a company called Paxflow. You should check them out. Paxflow. Based in Iceland, startup, but she's raised money in Iceland, and what she's doing is super interesting to help companies with the back office.
Right.
There's a company called Curated Planet. They're all about communications. If you don't know those guys, it's all about helping you have a very slick comms program with your guides, which both of you would want, as well as with your customers, right? So if your pickups change or, there's bad weather, so this changes or that changes, what do? Do you email your people? Do you message your people? Do you have to do it? My point is there's a lot more. Oh, you're pulling it up. Okay, cool. Which one is this?
So this one is Paxflow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
A lot of what she's working on is disruption. Being based in Iceland, they get disruptions from volcanoes once in a while, and you have to deal with it, right?
So I've heard.
But the point is that something that we're seeing a lot is more companies focused on the middle of the tech stack, right? The operational side, which we love. Like, we don't want every one of our sponsors to be a ResTech, because there's a lot of them. And now there's more companies coming out that are more on the operations side, and I think that's going to help a lot of the companies have better tech.
Yeah.
Question.
Well, I think we could probably talk shop all day, and I have a million questions I want to ask about travel stuff, but I'll restrain myself. I did want to get to, I think we're getting short on time here, but I want to get one last question I wanted to get in, which is your tech stack for running your business. What do you have a secret sauce in there? What do you recommend? What's your best tool?
I would say
I saw you guys on Zoho. Are you Zoho-holics?
We use Zoho for CRM.
Zoholics?
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you Zohos?
We're
Are you Zohos?
And I think of Zoho, HubSpot, almost cheap versions of Salesforce, but Salesforce is slow. You have to spend a lot of money to customize it. So Zoho works really well for CRM. We don't integrate it with anything else. But our main secret sauce for how we run our operations is Airtable. Airtable is a brilliant product, and like we have a master database of anyone who's ever spoken at Arrival. So if you're going to come and speak, we just need to add one check. Okay, you're speaking in San Diego, and we now know exactly. We have all your stuff. We don't have to recreate it every event. Same thing with our sponsors. We have a database. Every event we run off of Airtable, and then Airtable
There you go.
to.
There's your secret weapon, Airtable. I'm a big fan too.
Well, and you need someone like Lynn to set it up. So
Speaking of which, Bruce, every time I Google my name, which I don't do very often, I see Arrival speakers pop up, and I look at the bio, and I see I may want to edit this later is in the website. And I figured this podcast, it's actually on the website, is I may want to edit this later. And I figured this podcast is the perfect opportunity to say, how do I fix that?
I think it's so good that it's there.
Probably what you did when you submitted your bio, you probably put that in, which got sucked into Airtable.
Yeah.
And so now it gets output of Airtable every time.
I thought someone would read it. I thought there was an editor or somebody,
You would think. Send Tara an email. Update your bio.
So funny.
Or if you want, you can send it to me. I would be happy to do it for you, Kai.
Okay, I'll send it to Tara. I figured this is the best place to air this out. So, and every time I think about it, I'm like, I need to,
you have
email
a form.
Arrival,
You're
and
a
I always
speaker.
forget.
We send you a speaker form. Right?
Yeah.
And you would update your bio. And at some point, you left that in, and we didn't catch it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been there ever since.
Yeah.
For the 7
I think we thought
people that have ever found it.
Right.
Wow.
So
well, cool. That burning question is finally answered.
Glad we got that resolved.
Is that the only change? I could probably get that change done without you sending me a message. If the rest of your bio is good, as is.
It's fine. You just update the number of cities.
Okay. All right.
This has been great, Bruce.
You don't want to add
appreciate
a
you coming
podcast
on.
host of Get Up and Scale?
Yeah, that would be great. Add that plug in there. Co-host of Get Up and Scale.
Right.
And, we're looking for sponsors, so I think Arrival would be a great sponsor for this podcast.
How many people are listening these days?
34.
I mean,
34?
I would say dozens.
No, we've had 2 posted episodes, but once we all start going a little bit harder on marketing, I have faith that we will have thousands and thousands of listeners.
Well, Justin will hit
without a doubt
millions of people with his magical tricks of
happen.
Marketing, right?
Just, sprinkle a little bit of this on.
We're gonna have a manatee on as a guest here pretty soon.
This is how we're gonna blow up. Is the manatee interview? We've cracked the human animal language barrier.
Animal
and we're gonna do a live. Yeah, we're doing an interview of a marine animal.
Podcasters pull manatee.
Just make sure they're not a captive animal, because then it would not be approved to do that. They have to be
he never answers his emails, so it's really annoying.
And we're gonna bring it to the Arrival conference, have it in the hot tub to hang out with everybody, and we'll be famous.
Just Greg and the manatee in the hot tub. That's it.
That's why Greg comes to the conference. He never leaves the hot tub.
He loves that hot tub. Yes.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well,
thanks again, Bruce. Yeah,
right,
thanks so much for doing this, taking the time out, joining us for a fun episode.
I'm honored.
Hope we can help you get more attendance, maybe to 1,500, not 2,000. To Arrival.
Yeah, what is that right number, right? That's
where is that? Where is that?
And we have some ideas about some things that we might be changing in San Diego. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'd encourage all of our listeners, if you're in the tour and activity space, definitely go to Arrival. I don't think Justin or I or Brett would be where we are today if we didn't start attending. I can say that with confidence.
Yep. Well, thanks for that.
All 36 of you.
And seriously, I feel honored to be on one of your earlier shows. Definitely.
I gotta work, grind. That's just the way it is. I gotta get up, scale, and grow my biz.